You know that feeling when you meet someone and bam, it's like they seemed incredibly into you, like almost instantly.
Yeah.
They're showering you with compliments, saying how unique you are, maybe even talking about the future way, way too soon.
Mm-hmm.
It can feel amazing, right?
Right.
But then maybe that little alarm bell starts ringing in your head.
Absolutely. Like, is this real, or is something else going on here?
Exactly. Is it genuine? Is it maybe a red flag?
Yeah.
What's the deal?
It's a scenario a lot of people run into, definitely. And trusting that gut feeling, that little alarm bell, that's really important.
So that's what this deep dive is all about, right? Untangling that question.
Mm-hmm.
Why is someone sometimes so attached so early on?
Precisely. We're going to explore the potential reasons behind it.
And our guide for this is a really interesting article. It's called Why Is He So Into Me So Soon?
Right. It's by Anna Drescher. She's a mental health writer, background in psychology, psychotherapy.
And reviewed by Olivia Guy Evans, a psychology writer and associate editor, too. So pretty solid source material.
Yeah.
So our mission today, basically, is to unpack all the different reasons this happens. It could be anything from, a real connection to, well, manipulation, or even some underlying psychological stuff.
Yeah, the goal is to give you, the listener, some insights so you can figure out how to handle these kinds of intense early situations.
Okay, let's dive in. Maybe we start with the positive side. What are some genuine reasons someone might just seem super enthusiastic right off the bat?
Well, the article does point out that sometimes there really is just a strong initial connection. You know that feeling.
Yeah, like you just click.
Exactly. It flows, conversation's easy, feels like you've known them ages. It's often strong infatuation or just a really powerful initial attraction.
Right, that immediate spark, we've all felt that. And it's definitely exciting.
It is, but, and this is important, the article cautions that this isn't the same as, like, deep established love. Not yet. Anymore.
Right, not in those first few days or weeks.
Precisely. It could be the start of something great, maybe a strong foundation, but, real love, real intimacy. That stuff takes time to grow.
Makes sense. So how do you tell if it's that genuine spark versus something else? The article mentions green flags, right?
Yeah, exactly. Some helpful signs to look for, like consistent and respectful behavior. Do their actions actually match up with their words over time?
Okay, consistency, that's key.
And also, do they still have their own life, their own interests? While still showing steady interest in you, that's a good sign. They're not, like, suddenly making you their entire world overnight.
Right. And crucially,
They seem genuinely interested in getting to know the real you. They ask thoughtful questions. They actually listen to your answers. They're not just, fast-forwarding to commitment.
okay, those all sound like really positive signs. Good things to look for.
Literally.
But
Yeah.
what if that intensity feels less exciting and more, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so the article gets into the more concerning side too, right?
Yes, absolutely. And this is where you really need to be aware of potential manipulation. A key tactic here is something called love bombing.
Love bombing. Okay, I've heard that term. What exactly is it?
Think of it like just an overwhelming flood of affection, gifts, intense attention right at the very start.
Okay.
And it's often designed to quickly gain your trust and make you feel dependent on them.
Wow. So it's not genuine affection then. What's the real goal?
Well, the underlying aim is often about creating emotional dependency, making you feel incredibly special, incredibly loved really fast.
So you become easier to influence.
Yeah.
Or control.
Exactly. The article suggests it can mask deeper things, insecurity, maybe control issues, sometimes even narcissistic traits.
Okay, that's quite different from just being excited. So how do you tell the difference between genuine enthusiasm and, well, love bombing? What are the red flags?
The red flags for love bombing are usually pretty distinct, thankfully. Think about really intense, immediate declarations of deep feelings, like, I've never felt this way before on the second date.
Right. A bit much, maybe.
Yeah, or over-the-top compliments that might feel, well, a bit fake. Grand gestures that seem out of proportion for how long you've known each other.
Like really expensive gifts or extravagant trips super early.
Precisely. And talking about serious commitment, marriage, kids, the whole future, like, alarmingly fast. Professing love within days or weeks.
Whoa.
Another big one is constant contact, just relentless texting, calling.
And maybe getting upset if you don't reply right away.
Yes, that's a huge sign, feeling like you owe them an immediate response. And finally, watch out for early signs of possessiveness or jealousy.
Like what? checking up on you.
Yeah, checking up, wanting to look at your phone, questioning who you're talking to or spending time with, that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah. Those definitely sound like things that would make you pause and think, hold on a minute.
Just that instinct.
Now, the article also brings in a really interesting angle. The evolutionary perspective. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is pretty fascinating. The idea is that some of these behaviors, like coming on strong early, might actually have roots way back in our evolutionary history.
How so?
Well, the article mentions that, evolutionarily speaking, men might be sort of subconsciously more driven to establish exclusivity early on. It links back to something called paternal uncertainty.
Paternal uncertainty, meaning historically, a man couldn't be 100% sure a child was his.
Exactly. Biologically, that's the reality. So there might be this kind of ingrained drive to claim territory, so to speak, to try and ensure monogamy and increase the chances the offspring are theirs.
Huh. That's a really different way of looking at it. And wasn't there a study mentioned about men falling in love faster?
Yes, exactly. Research found that men, on average, tend to both fall in love and actually say, I love you, sooner than women do.
Interesting. Why is that thought to be?
Well, the theory connects a couple of things. Maybe men experience those intense feelings more quickly. Plus, there's that background factor of paternal uncertainty we just talked about. So they might be more proactive in locking things down, you could say.
And the reproductive differences.
Right. Purely biologically, men have the potential for, well, theoretically, unlimited partners and offspring, whereas women have a more limited reproductive capacity.
Oh.
So that difference might make men, evolutionarily speaking, a bit less inhibited about expressing those strong feelings early. Less to lose, perhaps, in expressing it quickly.
Okay, so deep-seated instincts could be playing a role sometimes. But the article also digs into more, like, personal, emotional reasons why someone might get attached so fast, right? Not just evolution.
Oh, absolutely. It talks about what it calls misguided emotions. Basically, someone gets really drawn to certain qualities they see in you.
Like maybe they think you're super smart or kind or funny.
Exactly. And they feel this powerful attraction, but they mistake those strong feelings for actual deep love.
And one reason for that confusion could just be, well, not having much experience.
Precisely. If someone hasn't been in many relationships, they might just lack the reference points. That intense rush of infatuation feels so powerful. Maybe it's the first time they've felt something that strong.
So they assume this must be love.
Right. The novelty makes it easy to misinterpret. And of course, infatuation itself is incredibly potent. It's that intense, often pretty short-lived desire, easy to mistake for the real deal and rush things.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That initial buzz can feel incredibly real. What about insecurity? How does that play into it?
Insecurity can be a huge driver. Imagine someone feeling lonely, maybe socially isolated, or they've been single for a long time, or just struggle with low self-esteem.
Okay.
They might latch onto a new connection really quickly, almost desperately. They see you as maybe filling a void, providing the reassurance, the validation, the stability, the emotional support they feel they're missing.
Looking for external validation through the relationship.
Yeah, essentially. And then you have the whole cultural aspect, right? The romantic ideals.
Yes, the Hollywood effect.
Totally. The article points out that research suggests men, maybe more often than women, tend to believe in love at first sight.
Right.
So if you believe in that, you might put a huge emphasis on that initial chemistry, that spark.
And maybe ignore other things.
Yeah.
Like actual compatibility.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
You might overlook things because you're so focused on that initial feeling being proof. And culture reinforces this constantly, right? Movies, songs, books, all pushing this idea of finding the one instantly.
It sets an expectation, doesn't it? Like
Yes.
you're supposed to feel that instant, overwhelming connection.
It really does. And that ties into another concept the article mentions, projection.
Projection, how does that work here?
So projection is basically when someone, often unconsciously, takes their own desires, their own ideals, their own feelings, and sort of projects them onto you.
Instead of seeing who you actually are.
Exactly. They build up this idealized image of you based on what they want or need in a partner. They focus on all the good stuff, maybe even invent some good stuff, and completely miss or ignore any red flags because you fit the fantasy they've created.
Like they're watching their ideal partner movie onto you.
That's a great way to put it. They see what they want to see.
Which definitely sounds like a setup for problems down the line. What about rebounds? People fresh out of a relationship.
Yeah, that's the classic rebound situation. After a breakup, there's often this big emotional gap, right? Someone might, again, subconsciously try to fill that gap by pouring all the feelings and attention they used to give their ex onto the new person, which leads to, you guessed it, intense feelings and really rapid attachment.
Okay, wow. So there's a whole range of emotional factors that could be going on.
Yeah.
The article also mentions attachment styles, doesn't it?
Yes, specifically anxious attachment.
Anxious attachment. What does that look like in this context?
So people with an anxious attachment style often have this really deep-seated need for closeness, for reassurance, for validation in relationships. They might idealize potential partners.
Hoping this person will finally meet their needs.
Exactly. Meet their needs for love, for security. But alongside that, there's often a really strong fear of rejection, of abandonment.
Oh.
So that fear can make them hyper-focused on the relationship, constantly worrying about how the other person feels, needing lots of reassurance, which can definitely come across as being too into you too soon.
That makes sense. That need for reassurance could easily look like intense interest from the outside. Okay, one more concept the article brought up. Emophilia. That was a new one for me.
Emophilia, yeah, it's maybe less commonly known. It basically describes a tendency to fall in love really quickly and easily, like really easily.
Okay.
It's characterized by these very immediate but often quite superficial romantic connections. People with emophilia tend to jump into relationships very fast.
So what's the driving force there?
The key thing is they don't necessarily stop to evaluate compatibility. Is this person actually a good match long-term? Is this healthy? Their main focus tends to be on getting that immediate reward, that feeling of connection, the validation, the excitement that comes with falling in love.
So it's almost like they're addicted to the feeling of falling in love more than the actual person.
That's a pretty good way to think about it, yeah. It's more about the state of being in love.
And does that lead to problems?
It often can, unfortunately, because that strong drive for the feeling can lead to things like idealizing partners way too much, ignoring obvious red flags.
But that would spoil the feeling.
Right. And sometimes even things like lying or exhibiting love-bombing behaviors themselves, or even infidelity, all driven by this intense need to be in that state of romantic connection.
Wow. Okay, that covers a huge range of possibilities for why someone might seem so into you so soon. So, switching gears a bit, what does the article say about how you should handle it if you're on the receiving end of this intensity? What's the practical advice?
Yeah, this is crucial. The article really hammers home the importance of staying grounded in your own feelings and what you actually want.
Not just getting swept away by their intensity.
Exactly. Take a breath. Reflect honestly. Do you see a real future here? Regardless of how intensely they seem to feel. And remember, especially early on, you are under zero obligation to match their pace or reciprocate their level of feeling.
That's such an important reminder. It's okay if you're not feeling it as strongly yet or ever.
Absolutely. And linked to that is carefully observing their behavior, not just listening to their words.
Right, actions speak louder.
Totally. That initial strong attraction can be exciting, yes, but you got to be cautious because moving too fast can be a manipulative tactic. Trust your gut.
So if it feels rushed or too good to be true, or your boundaries feel pushed.
Pay attention to that. Very close attention. The article brings up those manipulation red flags again here. The love bombing signs we talked about, any lack of respect for your boundaries, like pressuring you for time, invading your space.
Yeah.
An overly intense focus on just the physical side of things early on, dismissing your concerns if you raise them, and any of those narcissistic traits. Grandiosity, lack of empathy, constant need for admiration, maybe gaslighting you.
Okay, lots to watch out for. And the article stresses setting boundaries early.
Essential. Absolutely essential, both for your own sanity and for setting the stage for potentially healthier interactions, even if their interest is genuine.
So how do you do that? It can feel awkward, right? Especially if you do like them somewhat.
It can be awkward, but it's necessary. The advice is to be clear and direct about your needs and limits. Use I statements, I feel, or I need, so it doesn't sound like you're blaming them.
Okay, like I feel a bit overwhelmed when we talk about the future already.
Exactly. Try to have some empathy, too. You can acknowledge your feelings. I appreciate you feel strongly, while still clearly stating your own need, but I need us to take things more slowly. Encourage open communication where you both feel safe sharing needs. And crucially, be consistent.
Don't set a boundary and then let it slide.
Right. That just teaches them the boundary isn't real.
The article had some good example phrases, didn't it?
Yeah, they were really practical. Things like, I think we can build something stronger if we take things slow and maybe just see each other once a week for now.
Oh, that's clear and constructive.
Or, I really enjoy spending time with you, but I also need some evenings to myself just to recharge. It acknowledges the connection but states the need for space.
Nice. What about addressing potential hurt feelings?
Good point. Maybe something like, I know it might feel hard when I say no to some plans. It's not because I don't like you, it's just that I need my own space sometimes.
That shows empathy.
And encouraging reciprocity. I want to make sure we both feel comfortable. What do you need from me? What feels good? What doesn't? Opening that door.
Those are super helpful examples. Now, the article also suggests reflecting on our own part in the dynamic, right? It's not always just about the other person.
Yes, absolutely. Our own beliefs, our own patterns can really influence how we react when someone comes on strong.
Like those romantic beliefs we talked about. Love at first sight.
Exactly. If you're a big believer in love at first sight, you might give that initial chemistry way too much weight.
And maybe ignore red flags because
Yeah.
you want it to be the one.
Precisely. It makes it harder to tell infatuation apart from something with real lasting potential. You might see the intensity itself as proof.
What about our own attachment styles affecting things?
Definitely.
Hmm.
If you lean anxious, like we discussed, that intensity might feel really validating. You might even equate it with love and security.
Which could make you overlook problems.
Yeah, and make it harder to set boundaries because you're afraid of losing that validation, that connection. Fear of rejection kicks in.
And if you're more on the avoidant side, or just generally more reserved.
Then that intense affection might feel really overwhelming, maybe even suffocating. You might think, this is too good to be true, or worry about losing your independence and end up pushing them away, even if their intentions are good.
Huh. So our own patterns really shape our perception. I think the article mentioned Esther Perel.
Yes, suggesting we ask ourselves, can I actually receive love and affection comfortably? Or do my own fears, maybe fears about relationships not lasting, get in the way and color how I see their behavior?
That requires some real self-awareness, looking inwards.
It does. Understanding your own stuff is key to navigating relationships healthily.
And finally, the article is pretty clear about when it's just time to walk away.
Absolutely. If those red flags are consistently popping up, if you feel pressured, stressed out, like you can't breathe,
Then it's probably not going to get better.
exactly. Walking away is often the healthiest choice in that case. Early dating should feel relatively light, fun, exploratory. If it feels heavy, wrong, and your boundaries are being trampled on, it's a pretty clear sign about what the future might hold with that person.
Yeah. Listen to that feeling.
Definitely.
Okay, so bringing this all together, this whole question of why are they so into me so soon? It's complex.
It really is. It could be that genuine spark, totally. But it could also be manipulation or those deeper evolutionary drives, misread emotions, attachment needs, maybe even that emophilia thing. Lots of possibilities.
So the big takeaways for you, listening, seem to be
Yeah.
know yourself, understand your own patterns.
Yep. Cultivate that self-awareness and boundaries. Set them, keep them. That's non-negotiable for healthy relationships.
And trust your gut.
Always. Above all else, if something feels off, if you feel uncomfortable, listen to that. It's telling you something important.
Such valuable stuff to keep in mind.
Okay.
So as you're thinking about all this, here's something to mull over. Out of all these reasons we've talked, through genuine spark, manipulation, evolution, insecurity, emophilia, all of it, which one do you think gets the most misunderstood in those really early dating stages? And maybe think about how being more aware of all these potential drivers could help us all build healthier connections from the start.
That's a great question to ponder. Definitely food for thought.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.